Major Kira is one puppet that doesn't like her strings pulled. Romulans and drunk Klingons are visiting the station for a couple days. And Chief O'Brien gets fighting advice from Chief O'Brien. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Right. Hello.
Today we have a very special guest, the writer, Mr. Ethan Culk. How are you?
I am great. How are you guys?
Awesome.
Welcome.
Good.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we are reviewing Season 3 of Deep Space Nine, Episode 17, Visionary, written by, what a surprise, story by writer Ethan Culk.
Story by, yeah. Unfortunately,
Right.
I didn't do the screenplay, but I did do the story.
Yeah, I was told that this is one of the lesser changed episodes from the original story that was written. I cannot confirm that, but maybe you can. Did you notice a ton of changes or a few changes? How subtle or major were they?
From my first draft of the story, it was Odo who was doing the time jumping.
Okay.
And I also, the bad guys were Nausicaans because I thought they were really cool. But they came back and asked for a second, a revision. And they wanted a better, more familiar bad guy.
Sure.
And so we picked the Romulans. And they also thought, well, we've done a whole lot of Odo stories. Let's switch it over to O'Brien because he, hadn't had any really good stuff. The last few episodes, I think, is what their reasoning was. Mm-hmm. So besides switching the bad guys and the main person who's doing the time jumping guy, it was pretty close.
Plus, as everybody knows, I should have mentioned this at the top of the episode, but everybody knows this is Chief Miles O'Brien week that we're celebrating. Lower Decks mentioned that he's the most important person in the history of Starfleet. This is Miles O'Brien week. Dude, Nausicaans and Klingons, that would have been awesome. I love Nausicaans.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Cirroc and I have discussed them once or twice. They're the guys that played Domjot. They go, "Play Domjot, human!" Right, in Tapestry. In the episode Tapestry.
Right.
Actually.
Nice.
What was your inspiration? I'm going to get my Picard Tapestry guy while you tell us what your inspiration for the episode was.
I don't even remember. I mean, it's like 25 years ago, but I just remember kind of like, hey, what if, because that's the way I kind of try to do everything, just kind of hey, what if this happened? So it's like, hey, what if somebody kept jumping into the future and saw the station blow up? And so that was kind of where it came from. I don't know where the first idea came from, actually, but it's just, that's kind of how it went.
So how did you get it, get your idea submitted to the guys over at Deep Space Nine? Like, what was the connection for you and the writers over at DS9?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but,
Perfect.
Next Generation, about middle of the third or fourth season, started accepting scripts from outsiders. And I'm pretty sure Ron Moore and a couple of the other big writers started that way. Well, when I heard that, I went, oh, that's awesome, because I've been a Star Trek fan forever. And I started working on a couple of scripts, and I messed with them for a couple of years and really didn't do much with it. But when they announced that Season 7 was going to be the last Next Generation season, I thought, okay, I better get going. So I worked really hard, and I got a couple of scripts together, and I picked one, and I sent it in. And that was probably a couple of months into the Season 7. And what I didn't realize is that they stopped accepting scripts about 2 weeks after mine got there. And so nothing happened. I figured, okay, I'm going to get this envelope back, no thanks, go away type thing. And about probably 4 months after that, I get this call from somebody at Deep Space Nine. I'm going, why is somebody from Deep Space Nine calling me? And they said, well, we have your script. And, we obviously can't use it, but we like the writing, and we'd like to invite you to come pitch some ideas. And so that's kind of how it went. So I flew out to LA and pitched 4 ideas, I think, the first time, and one of them was the one that turned into Visionary.
Wow. Okay, so we've got to know. Like, we don't want to get into all of them, but
Okay.
what was, can you give us one of the pitches from the Next Generation, just so we have an idea of like what you pitched in that direction?
Oh, the script that I wrote, it had Crusher and a landing party went down to some planet. And when they came back, the transporter filters missed something. And so when she went to the next planet, she was contagious somehow and caused an entire species to go extinct. And then it was her having to live with that, the fact that she's a healer and a doctor, but she caused an entire species to die out.
Wow.
So
that does sound like that is a good Next Generation episode.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe if I sent it in way sooner, it could have been, but I was just messing around and then, turned it in 2 weeks before the deadline.
Ryan, do you know how that conversation would have went between Picard and Crusher?
You know what you're trying to. Well, first of all, here's our Lieutenant Picard. He's getting lost in the green screen here, but that's Lieutenant Picard in his green outfit, with the Nausicaans, and he's like, "Play dumb human," and he's like, "Oh, we don't cheat in Starfleet," or whatever the heck he says. But I know it's trying to get. I don't know what Crusher sounds like. It should be like Jean-Luc. Jean-Luc, I did. Beverly, damn it, Beverly, snap out of it, Beverly.
Yeah, I had her wanting to resign from Starfleet, and he talked her out of it.
Perfect.
Nice.
So
that's really good.
Yeah, cool.
It's a fun one.
I have a question. So when you wrote this episode, because we usually see time travel happen either in the past, in the long away past, the far away past, or the far away future. We very rarely see like somebody time travel into like 3 hours ahead.
5 hours. Yeah.
5 hours ahead. So, what was the logic behind that?
Because the last thing he saw, or second to last, was the station being destroyed. That gave you a really ticking time clock that, oh no, we only have a couple hours to figure this out. If it was 3 weeks from now, there wouldn't have been any danger there, I think. So the tight timeline there was just to create the suspense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in screenwriting, they're always saying, raise the stakes, raise the stakes, and yeah, it's true. You have to have something that's like it's right, right around the corner. It's just right there. You have to address it immediately. Otherwise, it'd be like, oh, we'll address it in a few episodes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, the imminent threat was the station blowing up. Which, by the way, I don't know if you got a chance to rewatch this episode, but I love the visual effects of the station blowing up. I thought it was pretty damn accurate.
I actually watched it again last night just to get ready for this.
Cool.
Yeah.
And watched it with my script.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Cirroc, he said he'll be signing that and sending that to our PO box, right?
Oh wow!
No. He's like, no, that's mine.
I can make a copy, whatever.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. Thanks.
That's great.
So I did want to ask though, like, because we've seen certain episodes where there's time travel or there's people seeing things in the future. This one was definitely different than any ones I can pull up personally in my Star Trek Rolodex. A lot of times we see some that really remind us of another one. This one didn't have that. I think it's because of just the 5 hours ahead kind of thing. But one thing that was a little different than that is I didn't expect O'Brien to be able to see himself when he came. Usually they just like see what's going on, but they can't see him. And not just that, but the other people on the station could see him and interact with him. Bashir was like, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you.
Right.
Awesome, you're here.
Yeah.
The other you just died. Let me give you some advice." That was. I feel like that's kind of what set this episode apart for me personally. Compared to other Star Trek episodes. Do you remember if you had, an actual deliberate decision of, should I have them be able to see him or should I not? Do you remember if there was any of that thought process?
I'm pretty sure that, yes, that was in my original. I couldn't find my original stories at the house or on the computer. Again, that was a long time ago. But I'm pretty sure that that was the original concept. Now, not all of the interactions, a lot of that was done by the writing staff in their breakdown and everything. But yes, it was the intention for him to see himself and maybe interact with himself.
Yeah, I love it when he gives himself advice fighting. He's like, Duck, great job, O'Brien. All right, Duck, get him. Anyway, what were you saying, Cirroc? Sorry.
No, I mean, that's exactly what I was going to talk about. Him talking to himself, which is what I think was the part that set it off for me, at least set it differently from other things that I've seen. You usually don't see people interacting with other people, and you really don't see them interacting with themselves. And so I thought that was unusual, especially during the fight scene where he just got beat up, and then he beats the guy who just beat him up. Right. So I kind of like that. It left a whole bunch of paradoxes, that some of which would, if you really sit down, you would, some of the things I was saying, is that possible? Like, is it possible? For example, when the future column, future O'Brien switched with the past O'Brien, and he was kind of like, well, I don't feel the same. That was right. That was one thing that I would say, well, is that even possible? And would the memories he have be able to be carried forward? That
was supposedly an uncredited bit of a rewrite by Ron Moore. So he kind of suggested that, hey, let's do that switch right there at the end. So I don't know what else he rewrote, but that little bit from there to the end, I think, was part of his.
I caught myself saying, oh, that's familiar. I've seen that in another episode. But I was like, oh, wait, that was a later episode. So that was, I believe it was an Enterprise with Trip Tucker. So they were doing something that had already been done in this episode. So this episode may have been the first to do that, to my knowledge, that whole switching of the same person from a different time or the same genetic thing. And I thought it was really cool when they said, they wrote in, how he feels a little weird, like he feels like he doesn't belong. And Star Trek is so good at writing these little one-liners that really help you understand how they're feeling. Like an episode or two before, when Vedic Bareil was saying, like, it feels more like a memory of a touch. Like, that hit me. I was like, I can picture it. I get it. And in this one, he was saying, I don't really feel like I belong. I feel like I'm, whatever he said, like invading somebody else's, place. And it made you think, yeah, that's probably how it would feel. Like you would walk into the bedroom that belongs to you, but it's not really yours. Somebody else was inhabiting that just 5 hours prior.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing I would say that came out, across to me was the fact that there were several tie-ins from previous episodes in this episode. The one glaring one was the dartboard, which we had just seen in the episode before this. And, O'Brien is playing darts with Bashir in the episode before this in the cargo bay, if I'm not mistaken. And now we see the dartboard being, put up and set up in Quarks. And so my question is that something the writers put in to add continuity? Because I can only imagine that you weren't privy to what happened to the episode before.
No, that was the writers. Once I turned in that second draft, I heard absolutely nothing. I saw nothing. I don't even think I got the script. The first time I saw what they did with it, I think, was the night it aired.
Wow.
I might have gotten the script ahead of time, but I really don't recall that. So yeah, that was the writers. And then putting in some of the history that they were talking about when Kira was talking about what happened on the Defiant. That was all them filling in that history that they had done.
I assume that whenever they want to go back and add certain layers of story, there's no way somebody that's pitching could be in on their meetings to know that kind of stuff. So it's almost like you're pitching them, all these ideas with a few placeholders saying, here's what I got, but I'm sure you guys have something that are more relevant. Like, for example, like when you really go deep into the technobabble, I'm like, they can't expect us to know exactly what they want, what kind of technobabble they want us to say. So you just make up a little technobabble, or you even just put in parenthetically technobabble inoculation or something like that, and let them do that kind of stuff.
And especially with the history, because, you know, from the time I pitched to the time they called me and said, hey, we're going to buy the story, was like 4 or 5 months. And then it was another 4 or 5 months before the episode was even shot, or maybe that timeline's a little off, but I think I pitched I sent the script in October, and then, I don't know, it was just a long time between the time I pitched and the time the episode aired. So there's
it's probably October 93 or something like that, because this episode aired in like January, February of 95.
Right. Right. So, or at least that's when I submitted the script, and then the script that got me the pitch. So yeah, there was a long time in between there, and a lot of episodes that I had not seen that were, you know, aired after I pitched. And so yeah, that's the writing staff putting all that in together.
Yeah, because there's no way you could have known any of that stuff. That they hadn't even aired that yet, or maybe even written any of that stuff yet.
That's interesting. And you said you also, when you pitched like 3 or 4 other ideas. So is that what, you go in there and you just kind of lay all of them out, or?
Right. The first time I had all these details. I mean, I had everything detailed out, and I pitched to Rene Echeverria, and he came in and said, okay, well, the way this works, we just want the broad strokes and the general ideas. I went, oh, great. That's not how I prepared. But I shifted, you know, I tried to shift, and I just said, okay, here's what happens. And I think the visionary one was the third one out of that session that I pitched. And it was really, you know, you go in there, you're so nervous, because here I'm just this regular old guy, and here's these Star Trek writers and things like that. And when I pitched the one that was visionary, Rene just kind of sits back and he thinks, well, what the heck? You know, what's happening? And he goes, yeah, that's cool. I like that. And so it was like, holy cow, you know. So
I definitely try to picture how that pitch goes. Like, you're telling one thing and they go, what else you got? And you give another, And then when you're saying the visionary one or whatever it is, it almost seems like they kind of stop and they're just kind of like, well, hang on a second, let me think. And they start doing all these little calculations. Have we done this before? How would it work? Could it work? Is this something, you know, and they start doing all these things probably very quickly, but you're watching and you're trying to interpret, what should I go to the next one? Do you want more details? Do I need to just shut up for 10 seconds and let you think about it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, basically like talking to a girl for the first time.
Is this working? Or do you want me to leave?
Should I shut up? Am I talking too much?
That's really it.
But, and the nerves. I mean, you're, like you said, you're sitting there with the guys that, you know, you want to be like in some respect, right?
Right.
And that you're fans of, and these are they're the cream of the crop when it comes to that particular subject matter, right?
And it was even worse because I had no idea what LA traffic was like. That was my first time there, and so I got there like 30 minutes early. So I'm sitting in this little outer office just waiting before anything happened. So it's, you know, it was pretty nerve wracking. But it kind of, once you get into it, then you're kind of in the zone and you're okay. And that all my later pitches were kind of like that. But the couple hours or 30 minutes leading up to it is just like, you know. So.
You know, with actors, you know, for us to get an opportunity to do what you did on the acting side, you would have to have representation with a manager or agent.
Right.
Is that something that you had to experience, or is that something you get later, or like what's the process for that?
Star Trek was the only show, and still was the only one ever, that would take outside stuff from outside writers that did not have an agent. And I don't have one. I've been working with a producer that's kind of that we've had this relationship going for a few years now, and some of the other stuff I've written. So I've never had an agent, and Star Trek, because Star Trek did that, is the only reason that I was able to get this episode and the other one aired. made.
There are a lot
produced.
of stories like that Star Trek was kind of for the everyman, or is kind of, they're kind of like, in a lot of ways, they were like, such a, an open door, democratic, let's hear what everybody has a voice kind of thing, which must have been really cool and empowering for everybody. Everybody just wants a chance. Everybody just wants to say, look, I got a bunch of ideas. If you don't like them, no big deal, but just listen to them, see what I got. And it must be so, fulfilling and rewarding to say, look, I wrote a bunch of things. I gave it a shot. These guys were good enough to listen, and they found something that they liked. And that's got to be a great feeling.
It is. And so few people who pitched or actually had something bought and produced. So I feel very fortunate, very fortunate.
Mm-hmm. So we got to go to our break very quickly. When we come back on the other side, we're going to talk with Ethan some more. We're also going to cover the cutting room floors, the trivioids that didn't make it. And we had a NAM in this episode. I'm sure, Cirroc, you may have caught it. I was waiting for it the entire episode. I'm like, there's going to be this NAM coming at some point. And they've made us wait till the very end, practically. Anyway, we will get to all that, and we'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey everybody, and welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton. As always, we are joined by a very special guest, writer Ethan Culk, who got the story by of this episode. That's the official credit, story by, which means he wrote the episode. They loved it. They rewrote the script, and he is officially a writer on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is awesome. Very quickly, the trivioids at the beginning that didn't make the cutting room floor. Sisko doesn't want to see O'Brien crawling around the Jeffries tube tonight looking for power surges. Did that one. The drunk puppet, or the strings pulled puppet. Chief becomes clairvoyant. Chief O'Brien gets fighting advice from Chief O'Brien. We got that one. It's all O'Brien stuff. Bashir wants O'Brien to go into the past and ask him to perform a basilar arterial scan. I was like, God, Ethan, I hope you didn't write that, or you're.
Nope.
I'm like, I don't know how you would get that.
That wasn't me.
Chief loses 10 dart games in a row to Bashir. O'Brien and Bashir create a time travel armband device, which I thought was pretty handy to be able to do in 30 minutes. And Chief is suddenly Nostradamus over here. Okay. So the NAM, Cirroc, did you get the NAM? NAM is a non-appearance mention. So what we like to talk about is sometimes characters don't get appearances, but their story arc continues. They're mentioned, they're discussed. We know that they're still around, and their legend continues. Did you get it this time, Cirroc?
I didn't. My guess is Keiko, but
yeah,
I didn't get it.
Yep.
I knew I was waiting for it. I was like, okay, either Keiko's going to be in it or she's going to be mentioned, but I think she's still on Bayshore. So another NAM for Keiko.
And I'm sorry I didn't write a part for Jake in that,
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. I think O'Brien got a just deserved episode, because there was a lag in his storyline and his character development so far. There's a lot of stuff to cover, but we've seen a lot of Kira stuff, we've seen Odo stuff, but O'Brien doesn't get as much focal point as he should, and he's a fantastic actor, and he's so easy at it, so nonchalant about how he does his performance, that it's just natural, and that's what makes him great.
He definitely plays the everyman. That's what everybody likes. He's just the regular guy. He just wants to fix stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked that there were lines in this particular one. One of them, on the technobabble side, when they started going into quantum singularity, I was lost. Just for the record, they lost me on all that stuff. I'm like, all right, quantum singularity, all right. But I like the line Odo had in this particular one, where he says, "I always investigate war."
Totally.
That was one.
Didn't that feel like a line? I'm like, I feel like he must have said that 5 times in Deep Space Nine, and if not, he should. Like, that just seems like that should be on his gravestone. I always investigate war.
I wish I could take credit for it, but I didn't write that one.
No, it's just great writing, and you know, I really like that. Then the other line that he had that I thought was pretty great was where he says, "There is no careful way to interrogate a Klingon."
That's another good one, yeah.
Yeah.
So that actually does bring up a good point that I wanted to ask you, Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
When you're watching this episode, was there one element or thought or idea that really stands out to you as like the thing that you take the most pride in? Was there like, you know, whether it was a scene or whether it was just the concept itself, or, you know, was there something where you jump out and you go, you know, that's my favorite part about this whole thing?
It probably has to be the whole concept and the fact that, you know, the time jumping and figuring out what's going on and the station blowing up and preventing it. Because the little scenes together, you know, I really didn't have a whole lot to do with that, any of the dialogue or anything like that, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I guess just the whole concept of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the story. You're framing the story. You're not putting in all the the detail work. That's what the writers are doing. But you are framing it, and they have a really good thing to play with, which I think is great because we get these dynamics where you see O'Brien and O'Brien. Or, for example, I like the line where Bashir says, "Who am I to argue with me?"
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
So you get those kinds of things that are really, they play well in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ethan, who's your favorite Deep Space Nine character?
Ooh.
Either to write for or to watch. Is there just somebody that really stuck out that, you know, you kind of always wish you could write for, or somebody that you just enjoy watching the most?
That's a good question.
Cirroc is seething right now.
Jake.
No, don't say me. Don't say me. I'm disqualified.
Yeah.
I'm disqualified.
Okay.
Yeah.
My guess is Odo, because you said you originally wrote this for Odo's character.
Right. Odo or Bashir, I guess. Yeah, if you're talking about the main characters, yeah, probably Odo or Bashir. I did a second kind of spec script and sent it in, and it was a Deep Space Nine one. And they were stranded on a runabout, and it was Bashir and a couple other people, but he was my favorite part. He was my favorite one to write for in that. I mean, nothing ever happened with that script, but I really enjoyed writing for Bashir. So.
Also noticed some, I did notice some POC-LEDs. Sorry, PAC-LEDs. Card calls them POC-LEDs, so I call them POC-LEDs. POC-LEDs. And we saw Morn in there. I do wonder if you ever kind of add that in the script. Morn is in the corner, and they're like, "We'll handle the Morn stuff, dude."
Yeah, it's really just the broad strokes of it. I mean, it's 8 pages double spaced is what 8 or 9 pages double spaced. So you can't really get into any details like that with the story. Right.
Were you happy with the way it turned out, or is there things that you would say, you know, and maybe made the cutting room floor, or something that you thought would have changed the story a little bit?
No, I'm really happy. In fact, I think it's better than my original both drafts of my story. I think they did a better job than I probably would have had they given me the script. Although, if I had been able to write the script, I probably would have gone in there to the writer's room and done the entire breakdown with them. But yeah, I think they made it better. I really do.
Was there ever a part that you felt like you would have changed in the final draft? Like, was there anything where you say, you know, I would have done this, or I wish I pushed harder for that? Or do you feel like your overall everything was right on cue?
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. I can't really think of anything I would change.
That's awesome.
You know, we were talking, Ethan, before this. Ryan and I were mentioning how different actors like Armin and Renee stretch words and play with words, and it just changes the way you're used to hearing words, and it adds to the dramatic effect of it. But in this particular episode, I don't know if you caught it, Ryan, but the scene where Odo puts the Klingons in jail and arrests them, he does a little interrogation, and he does a little negotiating with them, and says, maybe, I'll tell your superior officers how you mess things up over here, and we'll see how they like to hear that news, right?
Yeah.
And then he says, well, maybe I won't tell them. And he says maybe to the Klingons on his way out. He's like, maybe.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That's another little stretch of the wordplay that I just think adds little exclamation marks here and there, which keeps the episode just entertaining and fun.
Yeah, and I was watching last night with the script kind of, and that's like a ... maybe ... That's how it is in the script, and so he really played that out.
That's so there weren't 7 A's and maybe in the script.
No.
That was the actor making a choice, saying, "You know what?
Exactly.
I'm really gonna hang on this one."
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So that's what you were actually watching it and reading the script at the same time.
At the same time.
And just for the record, was there any deviation from one to the other?
A couple of words might have been flipped, and a couple of lines might have had a different couple of words in it, but it meant exactly the same thing. But yeah, and I noticed in your virtual TrekCon, a couple of sessions were talking about how Star Trek, you word for word, or whatever term you guys use. And I really noticed it reading it with the script. Now, there were some little chunks that they cut out, maybe 3 or 4 little, but it was only 2 or 3 lines of dialogue here and there. But yeah, it was so precise according to the script.
What was it that this script supervisor would say when you get it right?
DLP, lovey.
That's what it was.
DLP, dead letter perfect.
Yeah, I remember y'all saying that in the virtual con.
Yeah.
And once again, they would let us get away with, for example, reversing the order of sentences. Let's say this sentence is out of place and this one goes first. As long as you're still saying the same thing, they would let that go. You still got the sentence in, it just didn't come in the same order. Or like switching ands and thes and certain prefixes like that you can get away with as long as it makes sense still.
Yeah, the one when I first got my taste of that was Bill Mumy, who played Will Robinson in the original Lost in Space. And I was on set with him a few years back, and he was talking about his experience on Deep Space Nine, actually. It was like 6th season, maybe. And Cirroc, I think he may have been in that episode. He was playing like an officer on a planet, like a doctor or something, that they've been just kind of holding the line, getting beat up by the Jem'Hadar constantly. And he said that, he said a line, and the script supervisor came up to him and said, "Hey, if you're going to say it like that, I'm going to have to ask the producers if that's okay. It's going to be." And Bill Mumy was just kind of like, "I don't know what are we talking about?" And the script supervisor said, "Well, you said okay before the line. So instead of saying, 'We're going to go over here,' he said, 'Okay, we're going to go over here,' or something like that." Now, and I believe that's what it was. Now, this was like 5 years ago, so I may be getting it slightly wrong, but I think that's what it was. He added the word okay before the line. And so, of course, he was just like, no, it's fine. I'll just say it without the okay.
Yeah. You don't have to call the studio and
wait an hour.
Yeah.
And this is, I got to go out to the set and watch a day of shooting on my other episode. And I remember that day seeing Terry Farrell go over to the phone on the set and calling the writer and say, "Hey, can I say this line like this? Okay, thank you." And so she literally went and called the writer, producer, whichever one it was, to get permission to alter a line. So it wasn't this episode, but it was my other one when I went out there.
So they had it expedited by then. What were you saying?
Yeah. No, I was going to ask if you got a chance to go on the set and watch your episodes get filmed.
Yeah, not visionary, but I did for Children of Time. I got to go out and I spent one day in this soundstage. So it was really.
How was that?
How was that? Yeah.
That was incredible. That was really cool, and met everybody. And again, sorry, Jake wasn't in it, so in that one. But yeah, I got to meet everybody, and I can even tell you in certain scenes that, hey, I'm standing right behind the set in this scene when they're doing this scene. So yeah, so that was a blast. It was really cool.
That's when you should say, every pitch I had was a Jake-centric episode, except for 2. And they took the 2 that I did. Sorry, I did my best.
Yeah, that was it.
That's the story.
Yeah, that's the ticket.
I did pitch one where Jake and Nog were captured by somebody, and they wanted information from Jake, and they threatened to kill Nog, and Jake decided to hold the line and not call he called their bluff, and they killed Nog anyway. And then, Jake had to live with that. And they said, we beat up their response is, we beat up Nog too much already. We can't do that. But
we'll save that for the documentary.
But it really was. I mean, it would have been your episode had they bought it.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't buy it because I love my buddy Nog and every moment we spent together.
Yeah.
And the other tragedy in my particular character's point of view is that the show opens with my mom dying and ends with my dad dying. So we don't need any extras. We don't need any extras there.
Yeah.
That would have been middle of 7th season, so it was right toward the end. But still, you're right.
And he did lose a leg in that season. I mean, definitely. I wonder if things like that were kind of an inspiration to them to say, well, maybe we can have Nog lose a leg, or maybe we can, they built him up so much. It's such a powerful moment to take that away, or have that big crushing blow.
Yeah, when I pitched that, I don't think that episode had aired yet. But I think they knew they were doing that, or they'd already shot it. So that could have been it.
Yeah, they certainly wouldn't have this big, story arc of where he's overcoming, losing a leg and almost dying, and then 2 weeks later, and now he's dead.
Right. So timing is everything.
Yeah. So I did want to say there was a line that I also liked, and these are the kind of lines that Cirroc and I have fun with, like when Quark is talking with, I forgot, was it Odo or Chief? I don't even remember, but he says, it's just darts. I think it was Chief O'Brien. He says, darts and bars go together like bacon and eggs. And Quark says, at least people order bacon and eggs. He's like, why am I going to have these dumb darts in here?
Yeah.
That was fun. And it was cool to see darts being brought in for the first time, because then we're all watching. We're like, oh, cool. Now we're going to see darts in there forever, because that's what we love.
Yeah, I actually thought Quark had one of the best lines as well, and that was in the scene where he was supposedly entertaining the Romulans, and Sisko walks in, and prior to that, the Romulan says, "I think you're lying, Quark." And Quark's response is like, "Oh yeah, about what part?" Like, of course I'm lying.
Yeah.
But which part are you talking about?
Yep.
So I thought that was great.
That was fun.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what were they calling it when? What do you remember? What you called it when O'Brien would go and see into the future? I was just calling it flipping. He flips over to 5 hours from now. Did you call it travels or flashes, or what was the concept there? What
maybe jumps forward or flashes forward.
Jumps maybe.
Yeah, I'd have to go dig up the house and try to find that original story. I don't know where it went. So, but yeah, it's something like that.
Maybe jumps forward, because I just call it flips. I felt like you're just flipping the page over to later on in the day.
This episode actually could have been written for Quantum Leap as well. Could have been
True.
Could have been a Quantum Leaper.
Interestingly enough, our other podcast buddies, Falling Tower, that I do with our buddy Mr. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, and partnered with us, Virtual TrekCon, we actually just on Wednesday did our review of Quantum Leap with Rico Anderson, another friend of ours.
Oh yeah.
And that was suggested to us by, I'm blanking on his name right now, Lawrence Andrew Niels of Geek Life Rules. So anyway, it's funny that you mentioned Quantum Leap, or as the nerds would say, oh boy.
Yep.
because that's what Bakula always said in every episode.
Oh boy. Yep.
So how often did you find yourself pitching to the writers in a given year?
Probably only a couple of times. I think I pitched about, between Deep Space Nine and Voyager, probably about 30 or 40 stories.
Wow.
And Voyager liked one of them, but they didn't buy it. Brandon Braga really liked this concept, but for some reason they didn't do anything with it.
Okay. Ethan, have you ever considered making a book of all of your pitches?
I used to have a website way back in the day, but wherever I was hosting it on went down. So I have them all written up, in HTML and everything. So
because they span Next Generation to Deep Space Nine to Voyager, and you've got dozens of them.
Right. I guess I could resurrect that and put it back up somewhere. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be great, especially for the aspiring writers out there who want to know what it's like, what it's like to formulate the idea, how to structure it.
Right.
You mentioned going into detail. I remember the one and only time I pitched the one and only idea that I had. Uh-huh. I wrote the whole script out, and I did way more work than was necessary.
Yeah.
So,
but it's good to be prepared, though.
Yep.
In case they ask you questions.
Yeah. Well, in my mind, you had to pitch the whole script. I didn't realize the whole story idea. So I was writing the whole thing from the teaser to Act 3. It was all in there. Act 4, all the acts, everything. So when they finally said no, they're like, "What other idea?" I was like, "What other idea? This is what do you mean, what other idea? It took me forever to type up these 60 pages of dialogue here." And this.
Yeah. They want like a minute, maybe a little longer. That's all they want per idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, that's what my screenwriting teachers told me. One of them, he said, always have other stuff. Always have, especially if they like you, because the first thing they're going to say almost every time is, "Cool. What else you got?"
Yep.
Even if they totally like what you're going to do and they're going to pick it up and mission accomplished, they also want to know, can we work with this person? Are they really creative and good at what they do, or did they just get lucky once with one idea? So always have like a whole bunch of things, because that's probably going to be the first thing. And you want them to ask that. That means they're interested in some way. They like what you're doing, or they like you, or they like something. They want to know what else you got. Cirroc's like, "Yeah, thanks for telling me now, 20 years later."
If I had known that, I would have came with a whole bunch of really crappy ideas.
Yeah. One of them might have worked. They might have been like, "You know what?
I would have pitched all my crappy ideas, and then finally, when they say, "Well, do you have anything else?" I would have said, "Well, I do have this script right here."
Yeah. Well, I do happen to have this one thing.
So is writing that's your life? That's your main profession in life, or is that like a hobby for you, or?
A pretty big hobby. By day, I teach video production at a high school here in San Antonio, and so now we're trying to do it virtually, which is kind of weird because video production is a group project. Now nobody can get together, so we're really having to think it differently. But I write a lot. I've written a bunch of things that have been produced kind of independently, Star Trek related and kind of not Star Trek related. Ryan was familiar with a lot of those.
Totally.
Well, you did of Gods and Men, is it, or was it?
Yes, I was one of the writers on In Gods and Men. In fact, I met you there on the set. You probably don't remember, but I was also the script supervisor there, and I ran your lines with you in the dining room of that house that day before. So if you remember some guy doing that, that was me.
That was you.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
What a small world. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
Ethan's also written Renegades, which you were in, and before that Star Trek Renegades as well. So yeah, he's put you in his stuff. He gave you half Vulcan ears. I remember that from Of Gods and Men. You were also in Renegades. He also wrote and co-wrote Cosmos, which was another. It was like a sci-fi comedy. That was a fun one. So Ethan definitely involves you in his writings.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ethan.
You're welcome. And in the Renegades, the Requiem, that's the one where we had to cease and desist on the Star Trek and rewrite everything. But it was your reporter person was Jake Sisko until a couple of days before the shooting. So
yeah, we did a quick pivot on that. We're just like, okay, never mind on the Star Trek stuff. Eliminate all the Star Trek. And Ethan, God bless him, went like the night before and was like, all right, yeah, let's just change it all up one day before.
Didn't they shoot one day and then that afternoon it came down? So I spent one day trying to, taking out the Star Trek references were easy. It was figuring out new names for all the characters that took me forever.
Right. And for those of you at home, that there was nothing sent to us or Renegades in any way. It was just, the call
was a blanket made. General letter, right? Wasn't it?
Well, no, it was specifically to another group. And our executive producer, Sky Conway, made the call of saying, you know what, let's just not even be on the radar just in case. Nothing was ever sent to us or to him or to Ethan, but it was just kind of like one of these things where it's like, you know what, we don't want to gamble with anything or play with anything. It's clear that they don't necessarily like all this. So let's all stay friends and do whatever it takes. Now, it's easy for me to say that because I wasn't the one staying up till 3 a.m. changing all the names like Ethan was. But Ethan did it because we did already start shooting. We'd already had it one day already shot. And so we had to go back and like eliminate some things. But, the bottom line is everybody wanted to be friends with CBS. And if CBS wasn't liking what someone else was doing, we wanted to be like, all right, look, we're on your side.
Right. Right. Spend all that money and then they tell us, hey, you got to shut it down. So you might as well be proactive like we did.
Yeah, we definitely did not want something like that to happen. So we got just a couple minutes left. Any final thoughts on the episode, Cirroc?
Well, I think it was a good episode. I did like the themes in it. I didn't see so much of a B storyline in this.
That's right.
I saw an A storyline. I didn't really see a B storyline. So I think the whole thing was centered around the A storyline.
Star Trek does that for us every once in a while. Every once in a while, we're like, wait a minute. There wasn't a B storyline. It's just kind of one storyline that is so all-encompassing that it works, that you don't need the secondary story.
Yeah. You got little tidbits like when Kira and Odo were going, they say I like you. How ridiculous.
Right.
And so but that's not really a whole storyline. That's a single little 30-second scene. So
that is a serialization. That is just adding something for future episodes and stuff. That was cool. So something
I do have a nitpick though.
Oh boy.
And this is nothing against you, Ethan. This is just my own personal take on it. I felt that when O'Brien died, that Bashir's demeanor was too casual.
I noticed the same. Totally.
Yeah. He walked into the room. He was like, so, he died, so I couldn't do anything. It was way too casual. I felt like he could have played that scene differently.
Or directing, whatever it was.
Yeah. Whatever it was. That's my nitpick on that.
Yeah, he should have been devastated. Yeah, until at least he saw the other O'Brien and oh wow, we can fix this.
I noticed the same thing. Like I expected him to see him and be like, oh my God, I'm so happy. This is, don't look over there. This is the worst thing. Or just like he just lost his best friend, and then 2 minutes later, his best friend walks in like this. The guy's in an emotional mess right now. But he just comes in. He's like, "Oh, good. Have a seat. My secretary will be right with you. I'm dealing with your dead self right now."
Yeah, it was way too casual for me. That's my own little nitpick. He actually didn't do that in the other scenes. But he did it, he did it in that particular scene, in the death scene. And I just thought, I don't know if that was good direction there. I think they should have had him play that a little harder. But overall, I think that the episode was great. If you want to keep nitpicking here and there, you can find whatever future time travel people that have talked about altering the future and past and those
like
kinds
both O'Briens say, I hate temporal mechanics.
Exactly, and I hate temporal mechanics. That's why I won't nitpick about the time travel stuff, because that's like all theoretical anyway. So, but that overall, I just think that was a good episode. The pace was really good. I never felt myself looking at it saying, I wish this would move along quicker. You know, as a matter of fact, when it got close to the end, I was like, oh wow, we're wrapping this thing up.
Yeah.
You know, so
well, cool.
it was a good episode.
Thank you.
That's fun.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
So we are just about out of time here. 100% with you on the on that scene with the death and all that. I totally jumped on that too. You said it a little nicer than I would have, though. So at the very end, what we like to do is say, Cirroc, guess the IMDb score. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
I'm going to say this is 7.2 to 7.4.
7.9.
Wow.
Got a good score. Very high score for a third season. Absolutely. It's a good one. Great.
Wow.
Very cool.
Wow.
So, Ethan Culk, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great time. We love your insights.
I loved it. I had a blast. Absolutely.
We hope to have you again soon then.
Absolutely.
Well, I'd love to. Thank you.
Great.
Yes, we'd like that very much.
Keep educating the young minds out there and showing them the right way, the Star Trek way.
Will do.
Everybody stick around for the free-for-all. Also, very special thanks to Carmen Shamwell, PJ Tomas, TJ Jackson-Bey, Bill Victor Arucan, Yvette Blackmon, Dennis Koch, Homer Frizzell, Eve England, and Marie Segal, Titus Mohler, and Tim Baum. We'll see you on the other side on the Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Seventh Rule. This is the free-for-all with Mr. Cirroc Lofton. Ethan Culk was good enough to stick with us. He said, this better be fun. And I'm like, no promises. We've also got Mr. Tim Baum, Commander Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri. We have Melissa Longo and Bill Victor Arucan joining us from a set in Burbank. Do you want to tell us very quickly about what you are shooting starting tomorrow morning, Bill?
Oh, thanks. We're shooting The Clown Motel. It's a horror film. It's number 2. So we're shooting some here in LA, and then we go to Tonopah, Nevada at the Clown Motel.
The Clown Motel?
Yeah, Clown Motel, the scariest place on Earth.
Wow.
Wow.
I've heard of, what's the Clown Liquors, or there's a liquor store like Clown Liquors. That one's in a lot of movies.
Scary.
where is the Clown Motel? Where's that city? I mean, it sounds really hot right now.
Sounds really, It's like 4 hours from Las Vegas, so it's in Tonopah, Nevada. And if you Google it, you'll just see the Clown Motel sign. It's about scary clowns, and there's a cemetery next to it.
There's also a top secret Air Force base.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
That's not
a secret
now.
anymore. You can actually drive by it, but I've been there, and of course, there's no bar anywhere around.
Forget it.
This is back in the 80s, which broke my heart. It's like
everybody's. We're good.
Yeah. Well, no, I went to the exchange and got my own beer, and so sat in my room and drank.
So there's a happy ending to this story, is what he's saying.
I was hungover the next day, but anyway.
Actually, I have a picture of you hungover the next day. It's right here.
Oh shit!
There you go.
You're hoping no one had that.
Wait, hold that up again, Cirroc.
This is. I'm trying to get no glare on there, but this is the Nausicaans. I had to look them up because
Nice.
I was. Who are these Nausicaans?
Wow, you just
they just want you to play dumb jot.
Yeah, they do love their dom jot. Bill, can you tell us anything else about what you're shooting tomorrow? Like what kind of scenes or what's going on? Is it a lot of death or what?
Yeah, well, actually, I play military specialist Curry, so I'm private, and we're shooting in LA at a bar. We're actually going to get all our troops together to go attack and save this girl at the Clown Motel.
Oh wow!
Awesome.
So I'm a military guy. All the military folks are going to assemble. And our Sergeant Joseph Kelly, who's our director, It's going to take us to the Clown Motel.
Cirroc, Bill might possibly be a bigger Warriors fan than I am. Did you notice what his character's name is? He said Sergeant Curry. Right? There's no coincidence there, right, Bill?
No coincidence. That was I had to have that in my contract.
Yes.
What's it like filming in the middle of COVID? I mean, are there restrictions or what's the deal with that?
So we've been planning this for a few months now, but we had to get certified. We had to cut down a lot of the extras, and then make sure that there's enough spacing and PPEs. It's a long process and a lot of extra money just to make sure that we're okay. So this is actually our first film shoot after COVID, right? During COVID.
I haven't had one. I mean, Lost in Space just said they're going to start shooting season 3.
Really?
Yesterday they posted about it that they're going to start shooting. It's tough because you have to eliminate people, but your cost is going up because of all the extra things you have to do.
Yeah.
So
a lot of tight scenes. You can't really do a lot of tight scenes now. You have to space them out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a little nervous, but we're good.
Just wear your masks and goggles and face shields.
Biohazard suits.
Yeah.
Bill, I feel for you because I've been to Tonopah and it is in the middle of nowhere. It's not the end of the earth, but you can see the end of the earth in Tonopah.
Thanks.
How much paw do they have there?
A ton of paw.
Thank you, Cirroc. Thank you. Okay, Melissa officially hates us now.
The paw is strong there.
Okay, TJ, can you tell us real quick what you were telling us right before we hit record on your first time watching this episode?
My first time watching this episode was during the original run, and DS9 came on like Sunday evenings at 5 or 6 o'clock, some ridiculous time slot. But instead of being home, I'm a teenager, so I don't get to pick where I am. We're at the mall and just walking around from store to store, but we, end up in a Sears for a while that has a row of TVs that happen to be showing Star Trek. And so, of course, there's no sound. I'm able to glance at a caption here and there, and then I see the station blow up. I have no idea what's going on, and so I can't just go home and stream it again because it's the 90s. I have to wait for the rerun.
Yeah, can't stream it.
You have to wait like 4 years to watch it again.
And Homer has
of course they're back the next week, but I want to know why it blew up in the first place.
There it is. Homer's got it. Who was saying about it being? Was it you, Tim, that was saying comparing this to the other time shift episodes?
Yeah, I mean, each of the different, whether it's New Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, this is one of the best of the time shift. Mm-hmm. Because Miles is an amazing actor, and he really did a great job with that. It's like he kept leaping back and forth, and it's like, and then you got into the temporal directive where he was like, okay, I'm going to die, but you're going to go back. Well, wait a minute. That'll screw. No, it's fine. Just do it.
So this leads us to the big question of the day for everybody to enjoy. Anne Marie's like, finally, as she plays with her hair. That's her tell. That's her tell. She goes like this.
With my beard, but yeah.
So the question is, what is your favorite time-related episode, of which there are dozens, whether it's a time shift or whether it's a full-on time travel to the past or to the future? I mean, it's a whole slew of them to work with. We are going to start with Marie Segal because she's like an encyclopedia.
This is such a hard one. I do want to say past tense gets a major honorable mention, but I think my favorite is Time's Arrow Part 1 and 2 because it was a cliffhanger, and that was a really crazy summer of waiting between, I think it was 2nd and 3rd grade or first and second. It was so hard to wait the whole summer, and it had like I had just learned about Mark Twain in school. It had like all the components, and it's a great Guinan episode. And we had been talking about Call of the Wild in school, and there was like a really fun like Jack London's about to go to Alaska to write it because Mark Twain's older too. They're just like a ton of like, really adorable moments, and I love getting to see like the captain on an away mission, and he's hilarious in it with their like trying to pay the bill for the boarding house. So I just love the whole thing, and that would have to be my number one, but really close call.
You know, isn't it funny? I bet you guys are all doing the same thing I'm doing right now. Is while Anne-Marie's talking, you're realizing just how many episodes there are that are like, I was like, oh yeah, there's this one. Oh shoot, there's also this one. There's this.
So many good ones.
Bill, do you have a favorite?
Oh yeah, so my favorite has to be the original crew, but it's Star Trek for the Voyage Home. And who doesn't like going back to the
So good.
Colorful metaphors.
And then it's colorful metaphors, obviously. And then Spock just knows everything. Double dumbass on you.
It's amazing.
That's my favorite.
Well, Melissa, do you have a favorite time travel episode or time shift or time phasing?
No, when you said you were remembering all these episodes, I drew a blank. So anything right now. I like the whales too. But he already said that one. So yeah, I don't have a favorite time shift episode.
That's okay. When we're done, we'll see if you come up with another one, then let us know. Yeah. Homer, I know you're ready.
Well, Bill took my answer. No, he didn't take it. He just asserted himself and said it. So there was no taking. I was going to go with Star Trek for The Voyage Home, but now I'm going to go with Trials and Tribulations.
Yeah, I knew that one was going to come up at some. I mean, that's it had to. I mean, by the way, guys, hang on one second. By the way, look at got Ethan. He's got your.
Oh, there you are, Ethan.
He's got your credit.
And that's
my 3 seconds of fame.
Anyway, sorry.
What does the H stand for?
Howard,
of course.
Oh, sorry, guys. Sorry, man.
That's all right. That's okay. Ethan, I just want to mention because this occurred to me before that I think Aaron would love the flannel.
Yeah,
that's what Brian said to Cirroc.
No, Cirroc mentioned it.
Yeah, Cirroc said it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a legit flannel right there.
Yeah, I wear these all the time. So
where are you located? Sorry, if I may ask.
San Antonio, Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
You in a lab right now?
Yeah, I'm a. My day job is I teach video production at high school.
And
this is actually a biology lab turned into a video classroom. So all the tables have been turned into computer tables over there.
Oh, because I saw the tables. I'm like, that looks like a physics or a biology lab.
It was 3 years ago. So
you can get a good video of frog dissection in there.
Yeah.
Hey, TJ, come on.
Homer, did you finish your answer? Did you get it all out?
I don't think I did, but Trials and Tribulations. I was going to say Star Trek 4. I'm just going to let it rest there and maybe come back later.
Got it. Well then, Mr. Ethan Culk, do you have a favorite Star Trek time-related episode?
Probably a toss-up between Visionary and Children of Time for some reason.
that's a good one.
Somebody's very prepared.
One of those two.
Yeah. No, I also like Trials and Tribulations a lot. That was very clever the way they did that. But, I'm prejudiced, to those other two.
Yeah.
No, Trials and Tribulation was definitely groundbreaking. I remember when it happened, it was like, which is a gorsht, as was what I was.
The CGI was wonderful.
Isn't that what Worf calls the thing? It is a gorsht. Whatever. In
Klingon pimple.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, in
No, we don't want to talk about
Insurrection.
it.
Insurrection, yes.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway,
It is a Koch.
yeah,
hold on, please.
TJ
Very
knows.
good. Yeah, I like that one. It is a Koch.
TJ, do you have a favorite?
I'm gonna go to Star Trek Voyager's Futures End, where they go back with the guy that invented
Yeah.
computers and things like that, and they get to
Ed
meet
Begley Jr.?
Hello,
what's
computer.
her name? Sarah Silverman, and
yeah, she was at the
real
astronomy. Yeah.
Freakosaurus, yeah, and you get the guys that are looking, what the doctor walking in telling people that God's not going to save you now.
Yeah.
Divine intervention is unlikely.
And how about those outfits that Tuvok and Paris were in, man? Those
Yeah.
90s.
I think we all had those outfits that like Sarah Silverman was wearing from like Limited or Limited 2. It looked so 90s.
No.
So that's a great one. But
Express.
no, couple of honorable mentions. Star Trek 4, of course, is a good favorite. And this one, because I love Romulans anyway, so they were here, and unfortunately their dastardly plot got foiled because of this little slick time.
What do you mean,
traveling trick. How
unfortunately?
convenient. How convenient that we can travel in time whenever one of them is around.
Yeah, every time. I just like that you said dastardly.
Yeah, that was good.
Well, Tim Baum, what do you think? Do you have a favorite or two?
Obviously, well, no, I love DS9's with the Bell riots and everything. But growing up with Star Trek, the original series, one of Terry Garr's first appearances in TV.
Yep.
And I always had a crush on her. So that was actually, it was because I loved it because they're down at NASA, which I'm a big fan. And it's like, and then you've got the time traveler who's the secret agent, and Terry Garr's the secretary who has no clue what's going on. And then there's the cat. No, so I have to say, a sentimental favorite would be the original series with the Terry Garr. I was actually trying to look up the name of the episode, but
I think it's Assignment Earth.
Assignment Earth. Yeah.
Assignment Earth.
I think so.